Good morning. So I think the microphone is really for the camera, right? Not for the room. Okay. So we'll just project, but we do need to speak in the microphone so that they can get it for the recording. My name is Kevin Bourne. Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you all here. I will serve today as your moderator. So I will do magic tricks if you need me to, but otherwise I'm just going to moderate. I'm going to pitch questions that you all gave me to our panel, and I'm going to let them run with it and give you the wisdom that God has blessed them with over the years of what they're doing. So what we're going to do to start is I'm going to have each one of you, we'll start over here, and we'll have you introduce yourselves. And as you're doing that, I'm going to consolidate our questions, and I'll be ready to pitch the questions as soon as you're done with your introductions. So we'll start down here.
My name is Randy Schultz. That's no E, no L. My wife will always say it's like he shuts the door. Have two sons. Jonathan is 29, Timothy 21. Always knew that they, especially Jonathan, would be involved in filmmaking somehow. I figured he'd be an actor. He's not. But it's been extremely interesting. I've learned more about filmmaking than I ever thought I would want to know. I learned I don't want to sit between them at a film, but very rewarding.
Hi, my name is Christine Tonkin. My husband actually is back there taking pictures, Jeff Tonkin. And we have two children, Zach and Alexis. Zach is 19, and Alexis is 17. And I would say, honestly, we probably started the journey, honestly, when Zach was like 5, but we didn't really start plunging in until 2018. But Zach was the type that would hand us Adventure and Odyssey audio tapes and be like, can you type this out? Because I want you guys to act it out. And so that's what we would do with our family relatives during Christmas is he would direct us all. But that's kind of how it originally started. And then we've continued much more actively since 2018.
And my name is Tom Cook, and my wife and I, Beth, we're missionaries in Spain. We were missionaries in Guatemala. I was the director of Bible school there for 3 years, and we've been in Spain now for 32 years, working and ministering. And I guess we have been involved in all kinds of different outreaches, which in some way or the other, the Lord sparked interest in film in our children. We have 5. David Cook, who many of you know, and our daughter Christy, and her husband Spencer, and their 5 children are in Wisconsin. They weren't able to come this year, but they're involved in film as well. And then, they both, our son, who's the oldest, and our oldest daughter met their spouses working on films, and we now have 7 grandchildren. And then Rebecca, who many of you know, who's here, and Laura, who's here, also working, have been working in film, different aspects. And then we also have a daughter, Esther, who's not in film, but she's a cellist and a pianist. So we've been in multi-cultures and around the world and working on things, and now all our children are back in the States, and most of them working in film. So, say something.
I don't think there's much left to say, so we'll just get on to the questions.
Okay. Yeah, come on in, grab a seat. There's a couple more seats up here in front if you need. I think we're going to have a packed house, so yeah, I think. Okay. All right. So we have some good questions here, I think, that are going to be very edifying for the group. And what I'd like to do is I'll pitch the question, and I think I'll just hand the microphone to you, but you guys can pass it amongst, so if you're ready to share something, just, put your hand out for the mic and we'll pass it around. That way I'm not constantly having to go back and forth. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our first question, and I can really appreciate this one. So I have a 16-year-old who's a filmmaker as well. That's what got me here to the Christian Worldview Film Festival last year. and again this year, and we'll be doing this as a family. And I know with parents of filmmakers in the room, I think this is one that will resonate with all of us in some form or fashion. So we hear a lot this year, the theme is Christ at core, and we talk about how do we make much of Christ and less of ourselves. And so as we're trying to help our children grow in this new kind of world of filmmaking profession that they're all pursuing, how do you, I guess the way I wrote it here is, how can we help our kids be in the world but not of it? And so we are interested to hear your thoughts on this idea of, we want them to see excellent filmmaking so they can learn the craft without exposing them to all the darkness and all the terrible things that come along with that oftentimes. And so just curious how you all navigated that with your own children and continue to navigate that with helping them to be in the world but not of it.
Sure, I'll answer that one and then pass it on. So honestly, I think all of you guys already are starting that and answering that for yourself because you guys are here. So back in 2017 is when we first started. Our son came to us, and before that he said he wanted to be an actor. And when he was about 12, and we were like, no, I don't want you. We were fine with him doing theater, but I had that desire as a teenager and college student, and followed that for quite a while, and just realized that for me that wasn't what God had at that time. And then when he said that, I was like, I just don't want him to be in the world, and honestly succumb to what I had to work through. And so when he came to us with that, I was like, okay, you can be a part of a Christian youth theater, which was a great experience for a long time. And then around 16 is when he came to us again and said, okay, well, I really still want to do this. Is there any Christian avenues? Is there anything that we can find? And so we took to Google and started just researching, which I'm sure many of you guys have done as well. And we found Christian Worldview Film Festival as well as a couple of others. But this was the first one that we went to. And when we first found it, we actually got to watch little snips of it. I think it was 2018 online, and we couldn't make it to that one because I think we found it the week that it was like actually happening, so we didn't have the availability to go. But then we made sure to, in that year, actually immediately we started praying. We watched a few snips of it that was available to watch online, and we were just immediately felt like this is what God does have for us. So we prayed as a family, and actually we felt at that moment, we felt like God was saying, yeah, we want you to, we felt God was saying, yeah, dedicate the next couple of years to going to these film conferences, setting a firm foundation. So I think that's really a lot of it. I don't think your children are going to maybe always do every single job on a Christian or faith-believing set. They might, but I do think that Zach will someday or Alexis be on sets that, maybe family friendly or clean, but maybe not know Christ. But the foundation and what we wanted was for him to have this foundation. And that's why we come back to these festivals over and over again, so that the foundation is set so that he'll be able to go out and make a difference. So that's kind of what it was for us.
Or did you want to say something? Okay. I think that it is a big distinction when you do have people working on Christian sets or worldly sets. There's going to be it's just huge. Now, unfortunately, there are a lot of Christian movies made, and the sets are pretty worldly too. So you really have to realize that it's not automatically going to be a Christian atmosphere. Now, there are ones like the Kendricks, like ones that David, our son, produces, things like that, where they're very conscious of not only making a Christian film, but making it in a Christian way. And the more you get involved and the more different sets you get around, you'll probably see the real difference there. But I would say that keeping your children centered on Christ all along is so important, on keeping them with having Christ in the core, whatever they do, but how much more important in Christian films where your product is going to be reflecting the message that they live. And I would say, rather than concentrating as much on all of the technical or even going to film schools or preparing in those ways, the first preparation, not that you don't learn all the technical things, not that you don't learn how the different crafts of all the different positions in that long stream of names at the end of films that you can be involved. Of course, as a Bible teacher, I would go right back to the scriptures and say that it's being faithful in little, and then God will give you much. In 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2, it says, transfer these things that I gave you, that Paul talking to Timothy, he say, to faithful men who will be able to then transmit it to others. And the real key there, I think, is if we can let them have opportunities to be faithful in the little things. And then as they're faithful to little things, God will make them able. The ability comes after the faithfulness in the kingdom of God. In the world, they concentrate on the ability, and then maybe they'll be faithful, or maybe they'll carry through with it. Too often we see in the world, they've got all this training, all this technical ability, and then they go out and get drunk and they don't even show up to work. Whereas in the kingdom of God, if they'll be faithful and they'll just be there right when you need them, you can always help them know what they need to do, or they can learn from those around them. And so I would suggest that keep their learning as much as possible based in Christian productions where they're doing things a Christian way, and let them just volunteer, be faithful with the little things. And if they'll grow up being faithful with the little, then they'll be faithful with the much.
I think that, as I said, just when they're young, you have to set the foundation for them. We were very restrictive when our children were young. No Disney, even some VeggieTales, because of nothing against VeggieTales, but some of the songs like Meshach, and they give them different names, and they forgot who they were in the Bible. They knew the story, but they forgot their names because of the jingles. So when they're young, you have to give them the foundation. They will show that you're learning your children. You'll see what they're excited about. I always thought Jonathan was going to be an actor because when he was young, he could take a blanket or a shawl, and it seemed like it could be a costume in so many different ways, and he could do things with his voice that I could never do. But so he was involved in VBSs and stuff like that, children's ministry. But as he got older and got more technical and just learned more about filmmaking, he found that he was more interested in the technical side of it, the directing and the behind the scenes stuff. So I think it's just the foundation is to me is the most important, because once they get older and they can make their own decisions, then they'll make them based on what they learned when they were young.
One thing I will add, I really appreciate those answers. That is really great wisdom. My son was blessed to have, many of you may have heard of Aaron Burns. He'll be coming in tonight. He's going to be one of the speakers this week. Aaron has been a mentor for my son. My son got to study under him at a guild we went to a couple of years ago and last year. And Aaron gave 2 pieces of counsel at that I think are right along what they were saying, and I'm just going to share these for emphasis and to kind of foot stomp it. He said 2 things that each of these students needed to always remember as they come into this, and he was talking to 16 to 25-year-olds. He said, first of all, the most important thing in filmmaking is your relationship with Christ. And it goes right back to the foundation that they were all just referring to. That is hands down the most important thing, because if you don't have that right, nothing else matters. So that relationship with Christ and making sure that they're really focused on being centered on Christ, because ultimately we know that the Holy Spirit in them will guard their hearts and their minds in Christ Jesus, and to help them know how to be in the world and not of it, right? And then the second thing he gave, which I thought was also incredibly valuable, is he said, remember, it's so important for you now to establish your boundaries. Know those, what you're in the military. I'm an Army officer, and we'd always talk about when you're out on a shooting range, you have your left limits and your right limits, and you never shoot beyond those limits. Otherwise, you can hurt people or equipment or animals. So we fire within our limits. And he said, as a filmmaker, you want to know what those boundaries are. And he shared a very brief story, which I will tell you. And he said he was offered an opportunity to take one of his stories into film production, and they were going to give him $10 million. Now he said, look, if you're in faith-based films and someone throws a number out like that, it's very easy to jump on that. He said, but it was not even a second thought. He was able to immediately turn it down, because the condition they gave was they wanted him to remove all the Jesus stuff out of the story. And so, Aaron said, it was not, I didn't even hesitate. He said, I wasn't looking at all the zeros and, $10 million. He said, you've basically taken the story out of the story, and I'm not interested at all. He said, I would rather have $1 in God's favor than to have $10 million without God's favor. And I'll tell you, as a dad sitting there, because I was a chaperone for this guild, and I'm sitting in the room getting to hear all these sessions, and I just thought, that's powerful. And my son has been blessed by the Schutzes and also by the Cooks. And so I'm just really grateful for the wisdom that you all shared. And I think hopefully that has answered the question. Is that answering the question on being in the world and not of it? Okay. I want to make sure we have audience satisfaction. Okay. So you don't have little buttons to give up arrows or down arrows. So I just want to make sure. Okay. We'll move on to question number 2 then. Okay. So thinking about as they're progressing in their careers, and we're helping our children do this, the question is, how did you facilitate and encourage advanced schooling kind of in the post-high school? So they're going through, or maybe even what were the kind of educational things that you looked at as you were bringing them on this journey to make sure that they could be great filmmakers as well as getting the schooling?
Well, I'll just respond a little bit. Our children were interested in film and looked into a little bit of what the opportunities or possibilities might be. But I think that they came quickly to the realization that one of the most effective ways to learn filmmaking is to do it. And if they have opportunities to work with excellent filmmakers, then they will learn excellence in filmmaking. If the opportunities that they have to work in filmmaking are with mediocre filmmakers, then hopefully they'll learn what not to do, because we can also learn from mistakes. But I would encourage you to look for opportunities where they can volunteer or get on sets with quality filmmakers and let them learn in the process.
Just a comment real quick. Many of you know our son David, and he's been working in all kinds of different positions in film as he was just learning. And one of the things that makes him such a good producer now is that he's worked in all kinds of different positions of filmmaking along the way. and he understands the different areas and how they interwork and coordinate. And although he never went to film school, well, I guess he has gone to film school as a teacher, but he didn't go as a student. He learned it as he was just working on the different films, and I believe on the mission field too, as we were working in ministry and different outreaches and all. He learned a lot of skills that then go into filmmaking, even though it wasn't actual making of films. Many of the life skills and things that you do are applicable so practically in filmmaking, because you have to do almost everything somewhere along the way in the filmmaking. So it's not the necessarily having to go to a institution, and really these days that plays back into the first question that we dealt with, how to keep them out of the world. So many people, they go into secular universities and even Christian universities and are filled with a lot of worldly and anti-Christian values and things along with their education. And just, I'm not saying don't go, but ask the Lord if they should go or not, and only go if he leads that direction, because it can be dangerous in just getting you off track. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of similar. So I know a lot of us are homeschool parents, and so when Zach first went to his first film festival, he talked to a filmmaker that did go to the universities for film, and he's Joth Riggs. So fantastic filmmaker and director. And he actually gave Zach out in a hallway about 2 hours of information and his time, which was such a blessing. And in that time, he basically told Zach, if you have tenacity and are assertive and are not afraid to be told no, and if you're on set, keep your eyes open and don't just pay attention to what you think you want to learn, but pay attention to all of the areas and volunteer for all of the departments. He said, then you'll move up. And he's like, you don't need college, is what he told Zach. And Zach was thrilled because he really didn't want to go. So he really didn't want to go. And we really struggled with it too. I mean, I'm sure some of you guys have heard the term, if you send your child to Caesar, don't be surprised if they come back Roman. And so for us, that was just one of those things where like, okay, God, really just help guide us, because we so badly want, we knew the foundation that we were setting, but we also had seen many friends, their kids had gone away, especially in the arts, even more so. And in that time and just being around the people that they're around, the foundation got challenged, and so we just prayerfully prayed about whether or not it was okay to not go to college, because that's what we had believed was the right way. And I remember the first year, so just an encouragement for you guys, the first year that we had made the decision to do that, it was actually hard for me to mutter. Like, I remember my friend back there, Robin, I remember just when people would be like, right around junior year of high school, so what is your son thinking? Where's he going to go? And we're like, well, he's going to learn on YouTube, and he's going to go on set. We're just going to dedicate our time to set. And so as a parent too, I feel like for at least us, taking that road meant 100% involvement from us as parents, and I'm sure you know that too. So we really prayed, and we pretty much dedicated 2 years to the day, saying, God, if you open up the opportunities for us, we will serve in any capacity. We just need to learn in all the areas, and God just one after another provided opportunities. Small sets that were fabulous and with excellence, big sets that were excellent, and big sets that were not excellent, and small sets that were not excellent. And just like somebody said, you learn from all of them. So we were able to have our eyes wide open enough to be able to be like, okay, the way that they're doing it, is causing a breakdown in communication, or it's causing division in the team or whatever it may be, or they didn't pray as a team, and when there's a problem, they could have stopped and prayed. Whatever the things is that we as a family would on our way home each night after different sets talk about, and I actually kind of just digest it so that we knew, okay, this is the things we learned, these are the things that we want to take with us on our next set or when we do something at home, and here's the things that we don't want to duplicate. I mean, you learn so much by just watching the good and the not so good. Yes.
Just a point on what you made.
Yeah.
I've got 3 girls, one of which didn't see the value of college, but the other 2 went to college. And all 3 of them are kind of in the arts. I didn't go into, I mean, I was a musician, but I didn't feel comfortable with, having the lifestyle that I wanted. And I would tell my girls this, I would say, most performing artists need a day job. And I always told them, have a plan B going, because, filmmaking or acting or music is so, up and down, and it's not a steady. And so my husband and I, my daughter's in her 30s now, but she's learning filmmaking, and she's also a professional singer, and I'm just glad they went to school. But I think with my youngest, I've had to basically say, it's not necessarily college that's important, because, she just gets mad when I talk college. I said, it's not college that's important, but it's the fact that you get some form of education, whether you go to trade school or whether you go to college. So college is not for every kid. But one more point, I've met 2 actors. They're married now. The actors did The Farmer and the Belle, if anybody has seen it. Jim Chandler, I know personally as well as Jen through my daughter, and he struggled for years, and he's finally like, I'm going back to school. So he's doing online courses. So I would still encourage your children to create another career on the side, maybe online courses. We didn't have that as kids. And continue to develop themselves gradually, because sometimes those opportunities are going to go flat, and then what do you do? So that's what I did, is have a plan B.
So absolutely, always learn, and that's something that we tell our kids as well. In fact, when Zachary first wanted to, when he came to us, it wasn't the first time, it was probably the 3rd time, when he's like, no, I really want to be an actor, and then continued, we actually told him, look at the credits. Like, we know you want to be an actor, but I don't want you to be a starving actor. And so look at the credits and pick something, or pick 2 or 3 things, and find out how, you can really excel at that and have that as your job. So I do believe that filmmakers, especially a cinematographer, I mean, that is something that they can learn and have as their day job and make great money, because there's so many avenues. It may not be always on a film set, but they can definitely make a living at that. But it is a little bit harder as an actor, because you're putting out the auditions and just like kind of hoping and waiting. So even though acting, at least a week ago, he still is said is his first love, he will probably be most often found on set as crew. So
I was grateful mine went to college first.
Yeah. And as far as, to speak to that college, I think everyone, that's where you have to pray and find out what is right for your kids, what is right for them, and God will guide you guys. Yeah.
Do you want to say first? Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's just prayer, and they have to figure out, as they're maturing, which direction they want to go. Know a lot of kids that are not kids anymore, but went the college route. Know a lot that didn't. I think you'll find at a Christian Worldview Film Festival, you'll find a lot more homeschooled kids than you would at a non-Christian Worldview Film Festival, just because of it's just the way it is. But I think it's just prayer is the big thing, and what direction they feel like they need to go in. For them, I see it as for us, it was more of the non-college apprenticeship type thing, by learning, doing it to learn it, and doing the different positions. And so both my sons, one married, met his wife on a film set. Jonathan, who's getting married next week, met his wife on a film set. So it's for them. It's in the both of them. They and their spouses love filmmaking, are involved in it. So, prayer.
Just another comment. We do have our youngest daughter went to university as a musician, and it's not that the Lord wouldn't lead you or not one way or the other. It really is important to follow the Lord's leading in prayer, like he was saying. And while working on a film set, volunteer for nothing, it's a lot cheaper than tuition too. You think, well, they're not getting paid. Well, yeah, but compared to paying someone else to learn too, that's a very interesting practical thing. But our son met his wife in Mongolia on a film set, and that film was purposely not only to make a film, but to train up filmmakers in Mongolia. So there are people that have the vision that the making of the film is not the only goal. And our kids got started with Advent Film Group, which is not doing that anymore, but their goal as well was to raise up young filmmakers. And so they were making films, but they were also training people. And then the Kendricks, I know, have a lot of interns working. There's lots of opportunities in that direction. And, but there are good schools as well if that's what God is leading you to do. So, but choose carefully if you do.
Wow, this is great. We're getting some good broad understanding of various approaches. I'm an Army officer, and so I love tools. And you're giving us tools we can put in our as I say, in our rucksack. So we throw a lot of things in the rucksack and we go on hikes. I'll give you a couple more tools that have been helpful for us. So, because I love the very practical nature of these workshops and how you can walk away really feeling equipped. So 2 Christian resources specifically that I think have been tremendously helpful for our son and really for our whole family is, if you haven't heard of Tomorrow's Filmmakers, look that up online. It is an online course, fairly pricey, but it's a one-time expense, and you get it for life, and they're always adding new content. And just a quick testimonial, my son, when he was in 8th grade, we homeschool our 4 children. When he was in 8th grade, my wife and I were out on a date one night, and we were just taking stock of how the kids were doing and kind of where we were praying for them. And I said, honey, I'm a little concerned that Brady doesn't really know how to use a computer. And we live in the 21st century, and he's not a gamer. He never likes to get on the computer, and he didn't really even know how to use a mouse. And I thought, that's probably not going to be setting him up for success in life if we don't make sure he's equipped with that. So we prayed about it. And the next day, my wife's doing a search online. She finds Tomorrow's Filmmakers. Well, wouldn't you know, fast forward, 2 years later, my son is an incredible editor. He's being hired onto film sets as an editor. He can work the computer far better than I can, and I've been using it for 30 years. And it was just amazing to see how as soon as there was something that he was interested in and it was related to then getting him on a computer, suddenly the computer was something that he didn't want to touch and do, write a paper in a Word document. But if I could get him to edit a film, he'll be all over that computer, and he knows tips and tricks and shortcuts on there I could never even imagine. So I thought that was really neat. Another great Christian resource, and the way that God blew the door open for my son in this industry as a 16-year-old now, is through the Lamplighter Guild. And they meet out in New York once a year. They just did it in July, so you have a year to plan. But I recommend this because that's where my son met Aaron Burns. They bring in the top folks from around the world in their respective disciplines. And it's a guild for the creative disciplines. And filmmaking is one of the tracks there. My son did the track. I went as a chaperone. And through that week, what that did is open the doors of opportunity where we got to meet the Kendrick brothers. We got invited on one of their sets. And while my son was observing on that set, he got to go sit on the process trailer, Kevin Peoples was the director. He's here speaking today. So my son got to meet Kevin. That opened some more opportunities. Someone else saw my son. They invited him on another set. And now at the age of 16, my son has been on 5 sets, and he's gotten to work on these sets anywhere from just being an observer to a PA to being a behind-the-scenes videographer to being a second AC to being a first AC. And I'll tell you, when I was 16, I was flipping pizzas at Peter Piper Pizza. And I was doing that to make money. I knew I wasn't going to be a pizza flipper for life, but I told my son, I said, Brady, praise the Lord, here you are at 16, and he was willing to volunteer on a set. And during the interview, they said, we appreciate your willingness to volunteer, but we've decided we want to pay you. So his willingness to go in and accept a volunteer position turned into a paid position. And I just see the hand of God working so powerfully in my son's life now. And as he's gone to these different sets, he sits at tables at these luncheons that he's going to at the different sets, and folks will tell him, like, Brady, your Rolodex has all the same contacts that I have, and I've been in the film industry for 10 years, and you know all the same people I do, and you're already getting invited onto sets, and you're getting paid for it now. And so I just would encourage you, if you're really bathing them in prayer, they're keeping Christ at the center of their lives, God will open those doors that you never could open. Because there's no way, I'm an Army officer, I don't know the first thing about film. There's no way I could have created any of those opportunities, but God knew exactly how he wired my son, his son, and he's directing those paths for my son. It's really neat. And then another one is Full-Time Filmmakers, another online course, not explicitly Christian, but they do have some really good resources, and my son has learned a lot from them as well. And then the last thing I was going to share, and then I'll take your question. The last thing I was going to share is you all had hit on it, and I think this is really important because we were talking about, you had mentioned have a plan B. And then you all were talking about, kind of, hey, look at those credits. So I told my son, I said, okay, I don't know everything about film, but I can tell you, in 30 years wearing the uniform of our nation as an officer, I've served in countless different jobs, from filling sandbags to advising the President of the United States and everything in between. And I will tell you, if you're willing to do anything on the set, then I think you will probably not ever have a difficulty finding a job. It's the person who says, I'm an actor, and that's all I do. Okay, well, there's a lot of people competing for that one role, and you may not get it. But if you're willing to be a PA on that set, you may not be the actor, but you'll be the PA. And I've been on multiple sets now, and I've gotten to see, that person's a PA here, and then on the next set I walk in, and that PA was the lead actor on the next set. And I was like, wait a minute. I didn't realize you were, this big name actor, because I saw you wearing a headset and, behind a camera on the last one. So it's just amazing. I thought that was powerful to see, and their kids helped to influence my son heavily.